Hello, and what is your name?
My name is Harvey Langston Donald.
I have a few questions to ask you. What was life like growing up compared to how kids grow up today?
But life growing up, as I was a kid, you do what you're told and you stay in your own lane. You know, the parents had the upper hand on us. They told us what to do and what not to do, and we obeyed the rules.
What is one experience with racism or unfair treatment that you remember from earlier in your life?
Well, what I remember is that there's certain things that we couldn't do when we went shopping. We had our own places to shop at, and then the white people would be first and the black would be last. As long as white people in the store, you couldn't get waited on. And then if you wanted to go to the movie, you sit downstairs and the white people sit upstairs. And then if I had certain places to drink and certain places to get food, they had a little window about yay wide for us to order our food outside, and the white people were all inside.
Wow.
Oh. What are some changes that you have seen that make you hopeful for the future?
We slowly getting our freedom where we can do the things that we like to do. But there was a time when I was growing up, you couldn't, a lot of things you just couldn't do. You know, you lived in your area and the white people lived in their area. You know, now it's better, but it's different,
Yes.
It's a lot different. There's still a lot of prejudice, but it's not wide open. It's sneaky prejudice.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And prejudice back then, right from wrong. Or they didn't like you, and we mind our business.
Yes, I agree. What did community look like when you were growing up?
We grew up in the country, just wilderness and roads and dirt roads and trees and houses every so many miles apart. You know, we weren't in the city, we were in the country. And we did our own little work. We raised our food and etc.
That's really interesting. And here's my last question. How do you think that young people can rebuild strong communities now and further the progress that has been made so far?
Well, today is the people working together as a couple or family and loving one another and doing the right thing now. Because then, the older people taught us what to do and we followed their lead. And now everybody wants to be the leader. Nobody wants to take orders no more.
Hi, Mimi.
Hi.
I mean, not Mimi.
I am Mimi.
Hello. What's your name?
Mimi.
No, it's not. What's your first name?
Carla.
And what's your last name?
Morrie.
I have a few questions for you. What was life like growing up compared to how kids grow up today?
I'm an only child, so my life was I was really blessed. I grew up in the '60s, early '60s on up, and during the time of racism and uh, a lot of that was going on. My mother was a professional. She was a secretary, administrative assistant. My father was in the military. So I went to private school. They built a house in '65. So life for me was blessed until my mom got sick. So where a lot of other people were dealing with, other blacks were dealing with racism and stuff like that, I didn't really experience it right then.
What is one experience with racism or unfair treatment that you remember from earlier in your life?
I used to work at Richards Gobower Air Force Base. This was in the '80s, the early '80s. And there was it was in South Kansas City, so it was off of 150th. It was in Belton. Blacks were not necessarily living that far unless you were in the military. And then you were living in these little bitty houses and stuff. But there was it was Martin Luther King's birthday, and they had just declared it a holiday. So one of the people at the base I think she was the command. She was the commander's secretary, so she was the base commander's secretary. And she asked me, "What do you people do on that day? What do you people do on Martin Luther King's birthday?" And I'm thankful I had a quick comeback that didn't make me lose my job. But I told her nothing. We just eat chitlins and recreate the race riots.
Oh my gosh. All right. What did community look like when you were growing up?
Community meaning neighbors or the community?
Black community. Like,
Black
how
community.
did it look?
The Black community was, we were a close knit community. We looked out for each other. The children, there was respect. There was a lot of respect. You don't walk in a room without speaking. You don't walk in anyone's house without speaking. There were a lot of rules that we were raised by, heavy on respect for your elders. I also grew up in an area off Vine Street, and even though you had these guys who were gangsters, who were quote unquote criminals, but you didn't hurt children and you didn't hurt elderly. So the community was a close knit community. Oh my gosh, that's all right. Keep going.
That is really interesting. How do you think that young people can help rebuild strong communities now?
By sticking together, solidarity, staying up on current events. Don't let anyone speak. I'm definitely against negativity. Um, I think now because the youth has you guys have more opportunity than what a lot of us had back then. So it's up to you guys to come together, like I said, in solidarity and stick together.
What changes have you seen that make you hopeful today or hopeful for a better tomorrow?
I have seen the young people stand up, and when I say young people, younger than me, Black Lives Matter. When I hear you guys talk about uh, injustice and how it bothers you, uh, but you guys are handling it in different ways. So I like that. I like that you're not going out there fighting. Nowadays they're saying this ain't my fight. Let those people who voted this administration in fight that battle. We're gonna sit back and watch because we fought.